Are you ready to launch your consumer brand and wondering how to make a splash that results in solid sales without breaking your marketing budget? Our guest helps consumer brands increase their profits while decreasing their costs by strategizing, building, and optimizing proven sales and marketing funnels. Oh my gosh, get ready to take notes and stay tuned for the Startup Life live show. Let's glow. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Startup Life Live Show. I'm your host, Ande, Lyons, 4 times founder and startup champion to founders around the world. And after raising 4 businesses of my own, I now share founder startup stories to help newly minted business owners find the solutions and inspiration they need to succeed. So thank you for carving out time to tune in and up your founder game. You always need to be learning as a founder, right? Got to keep sharpening those tools in your toolkit. And at the same time, while cheering on a fellow founder. It's so important that we lift each other up and add wind to each other's sails. And if you're joining us live today, please share YooHoo in the comments. And if you're watching the replay, please share hashtag replay in the comment thread so I can swing by and say hello. And thank you for tuning in. And if you like the founder stories and gems you're hearing today, please share this video with your community or on your feed. And if you resonate with the show's mission of amplifying diverse voices while serving first-time founders around the world, please consider supporting the Startup Life live show with your sponsorship on Patreon. And thank you. Oh my gosh, big thanks for sharing your love on this video wherever you're watching. We're live right now on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Periscope. And if you're tuning in from YouTube, please share your subscribe love and a click on the bell icon for alerts. Be still my heart. Thank you so much. Now, I got to show you. I don't know if you know this about me, but I am a gardener. Okay, I'm a perennial gardener. Look, this is peony season right here outside of Boston. I want to share these with you. They're so beautiful. Look at that baby. Oh, hold on. Look at that baby right there. Wow. I got to tell you, of course, the challenge with, cutting peonies and bringing them in is they do have a lot of bugs. So if I go, sometime during the show, you'll know that one popped in and scared me. So anyway, I'm so excited to share with you a wonderful guest that we have today and a super favorite friend of mine right here in Boston, Joselin Mane. He's a marketing strategist who leverages engineering principles to guarantee marketing results using his proven MMT method. And working with companies like Toyota, Dreamworks Studios, Warner Brothers, Eventbrite, and Cadillac, Joselin knows how to leverage online marketing technology to streamline digital marketing and social strategies and organize and promote events for long-term sales growth. Now, I'm going to bring up a little visual here because, I get to hug in person with Joselin here. So I want to share this here because in 2009, he was so bold and launched Boston TweetUp. And he single-handedly developed a network of over 100 Boston area event partners while managing the most socially active event calendar and promotional network in the Boston area to date. And I got to tell you, that's one of the main reasons he is a beloved member of our Boston startup community. And by the way, it's Joselin's birthday. So I'm expecting you to hop into the comment threads and share happy birthday, Joselin. So let's bring him into the room and have a moment. Get the clappers out. Here we go. Welcome to the show, Joselin.
Hey.
Woo, 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 woo. And
thank you.
Happy birthday, young man. I got to tell you, we are all celebrating you today. You're beloved everywhere you glow. It's a beautiful day to celebrate you. And I'm so thrilled you're here on the Startup Life Live show so I can give you like a hug in person and share your deliciousness with the world, whether it's live or via replay. Where are you down in Boston? I'm a little north of Boston. Anybody tuning in, let us know where you're hailing from and what part of the world that we can wave hi and I can blow you some kisses in the comment threads. Joselin, how are you doing? Our world as a startup founder or as founders, period, we don't have that kind of type of sailing, right? We tend to have a bit of a roller coaster. So I'm always curious as to where you are on the roller coaster. My guess, because, you could be like, I just had a win. And, or I could be like, oh my gosh, I am going up, or I'm like, wee, going down, and who knows what's happening. Where are you feeling your vibe right now on that roller coaster of founderhood?
First of all, thank you for having me on the show. I'm super excited to be here. And even before I answer the first question, what I wanted to do is lead by giving. Even though it's my birthday, I wanted to do something that we could all benefit from. So I negotiated with Ande, and I said, look, let's do something creative. So if you use the hashtag JMBDay, which is my birthday, and share some knowledge nuggets that you're learning from this show, and share this stream out to your network, whatever network you're on. At the end of the show, we're going to highlight someone for 1 hour marketing strategy sessions with me. And stay tuned because we're going to have some other things at the very end. So stay tuned to the very end for more giveaways, more kind of interaction. But yes, I wanted to start with giving.
This is why you want to work with this man, folks, because he is all about amplifying, right? He's all about taking and leveraging what you've got going on and building it. I always learn every time you come on. Thank you for your generosity, Joselin.
Yes,
absolutely. Yay! And I don't know who's in the comment threads from LinkedIn. LinkedIn sometimes does this when we're live on StreamYard, and it doesn't share with me who the user is. But thank you for the birthday cake and birthday love for Joselin.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much. So along those lines, that semi-answer the question, I'm always looking at the positive, and because when you're pessimistic or you're going down, you tend to miss opportunities. So my roller coaster is going up, higher, it's building momentum. There's a lot of opportunities on the horizon. And that's I guess the first startup lesson is being even keel, because there's going to be ups and downs. And it's those people that have, some people call it the poker face, some people call it being in the zone, but it's really all about just making sure that you have mental clarity and good mental stability, regardless of external forces that might come and kind of bring you down, whether it's rumors, gossips, the market's not reacting the way they're supposed to be, maybe some consumers aren't happy with the product or something like that. It's not what happens to you in life. It's really all about how you respond to the things that happen that really determine what the longevity is, because you don't want to burn any early bridges, especially when you're getting started right away, with not being able to respond in the right way, in the right manner from the beginning. So I would recommend mindset, which goes to something we're going to talk about a little bit later. So yes, having the right mindset is essential.
Absolutely. I love those words of wisdom. Remember, everybody, hashtag JMB Day into the comment sections with something that you're feeling that you really grabbed that wonderful nugget, or as I would call it, an Andelicious moment from our phenomenal guest, Joselin. And that's so true. I tell people 1 minute it feels like, we're popping the champagne, and the next minute you could be crying into the champagne, because, that's how fluid things are and can be volatile. And as you're building that company and getting it up to where it's more of an enterprise and you have standard operating procedures happening. But what you just said about trying to stay even keel, which means, folks, you really need a good mentor. You need somebody that you can share your fears with that are not your team and you're not in love with, okay? Yeah. It makes it a lot easier to manage those, especially for you first-time founders. I mean, Joselin's been at this for years. I've been at this for decades. And so we've built up the muscles, the resilience. But as a first-time founder, please, what advice do you have for those first-time founders who are trying to manage that mindset from the ups and downs, Joselin?
I think you mentioned it in the onset, which is having a mentor, having someone that you could have a conversation and even semi-vent to kind of get these frustrations out. If so, mentor is maybe the first step, and then ideally having a mastermind group of individuals that are in various stages of their business, so that you could hear what the various stages are and understand what it takes to get to each one of those stages. One of the big recommendations is to be the most junior of the mastermind, so you could grow up into that, because a lot of times if you're in a mastermind group that you have to work hard to get in because the barrier is just a little bit above where you are, then you could grow up, and as those people are in that network, they might have opportunities that are no longer appealing to them but are super advantageous for you. So if you're a billionaire, maybe a deal that's $10 million is not that appealing anymore, or $1 million or $100,000. But for you getting started, that could be something that you could essentially adopt, and you could probably get the recommendation from that individual because they're in the mastermind. Of course, you have to contribute something. Mostly when you are getting started, you have a lot of time on your hands. So contributing that time to that network, to the mentor, to the community is going to be your asset. So no matter where you are in your startup journey, I think that you need to embrace your current situation and leverage it to get you to the next opportunity and get you to the next goal that you're striving for. One of the things, going back to what was initially said, is essentially when you have successes, you might be riding high, you might have some lows, you might be, mentally not there. But if you look at things with the more balanced perspective, you're really able to kind of capitalize on it, and capitalize it meaning leverage the lesson that you're supposed to learn from that current experience, right? So number one, seek out a mentor, ideally a mentor that is on the verge of retiring or someone that's extremely senior, because they're more able to be more liberal and
stretch yourself. It's good.
Stretch yourself, work hard for it. And I'll give you an example. At IBM, I was there for approximately 2 years. I always requested a mentor. I requested the mentor from the vice president of our department, and they gave me two options. They said, okay, this person is readily available, and you could talk to them right away. But this person's harder to get. You're probably going to have to wait 3 months or so. But they're the EA of the vice president, or the second in command of IBM. So it was an easy decision for me. Patience. I waited, because now I got insights from someone that got training from and personal experience with the number 2 guy at IBM, which is a 300,000 person company. So sometimes just being patient, doing your due diligence is more important than trying to rush ahead. And
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
So there's a
exactly.
couple different lessons there.
I
Yes.
love those lessons. Those are phenomenal. And I want to just add one little bit. Be self-aware as to what success looks like for you, because you don't want to be judging yourself against, quote, unicorns, or unless that's really your calling. You want to know exactly, what does success look like for you? What does it look like in revenue? What are you capable of handling as a founder? It's okay if you want to get a nice sweet business of 5 million a year, 10 million a year, and you feel comfortable with that. That feels like a good momentum for you, a good goal for you. But be self-aware in case you start getting too far out of your comfort zone, because you have to understand, if you are in a lifestyle business, then that business needs to serve you as well as you serving it. But if you really want to get that IPO, then you're going to have to be doing things a little differently. So yay for that. And speaking of entrepreneurship, when did you get the calling to be on your own, to go out and create something that nobody else had created before? Because look, sure, it's been done before, but not by you and not for us. So it will be new for you. Where did you see entrepreneurship when you were growing up? What was it that called you to leave that steady paycheck behind and working for someone versus working for yourself?
It was very progressive. I grew up in a town called Lawrence, Mass. I didn't grow up with a father. I grew up with a single mother and 4 older sisters. and the 4 older sisters came from a different father, and they just showed up one time. However, my father was legendary in the town that I was in, Lawrence, Mass. He was the first person to have a bodega. A bodega is a small little grocery store, convenience store, a Spanish one. And the first bodega in Lawrence is equivalent to the first McDonald's of the United States. It was like the blueprint for everyone, all over the state, if you will. So that was in my blood. Now, fast forward, I saw my mom working very hard, very diligent, working multiple jobs. One day I ran away, quote unquote. They kind of lost me. I took my uncle's Stetson hat and his garbage pail, not the garbage pail, but the lunch pail, lunchbox. They found me like about a mile away. They were all frantic. They said, Joselin, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm looking for a job to help out my mother. So that was phase 2. Phase 3 came longer lines where I used to be at the boys club, and they used to have a thing called Hire a Kid. And I used to mow the lawn and do all these odds and ends. And this is the first time I negotiated my salary, right? It was like they were paying me like $3 an hour. And I mustered up the courage to say, oh, I want to get paid $5 an hour. As a early teen, that's pretty significant. So I negotiated that. And it was interesting because once I negotiated, get that approved, like the summer was over and I didn't complete the job, but I did muster up the courage to do that. Fast forward, I went to Northeastern, worked at Gillette. At Gillette, I was doing installs. I was part of an organization called Inroads that takes the top 5 to 10% of people of color and minorities in the area, puts them in, or helps them find corporate jobs, gives them training throughout the summer. And in order for that program to exist, there needs to be a sponsor, like a corporate sponsor. That corporate sponsor at Gillette was the chief financial officer of the entire Gillette, Mr. Skelly. And one of the great things that I learned is that you always dress 2 grades above your current salary. So as a college student, I used to go in with 3-piece suits. I used to look like the executive. And so when I was on the executive floor, I looked like I belonged. So much so that one of the executives actually asked me to install their network in their house. That's Mr. Skelly. I didn't find out about this later, but that encouraged me to do some in-house computer repair and upgrades of software, stuff like that. And that's where the bug came in, which is, oh, wow, I could do this independently. They are recognizing my work. Now I have to come up with something, a business, in order for me to take this to the next level. So it was like a supply and demand thing.
Yeah,
where they
sure.
not demanded it like it was like a big thing, but they requested it and I was there and it was easy for me. So that's where it evolved. So a lot of times startup founders would try to create something because their idea is so superior than anybody else's idea. I would look at it the other way. What is something that you could fill in the marketplace that's already being requested? That way, when you start, you already have clients. Fish where the fish are. Don't try to fish in an area that you want the fish to be, and don't try to give fish the stuff that you like a sandwich. Give the fish food so that you can attract them. And for fishing, you don't have to fish because it's kind of maybe inhumane for some people or whatever, but maybe it's you want to get to know them or something along those lines, and you want to cater to the fish because when you put fish in a better environment, so you understand what kind of food that the fish eats, so you could give them better food so they can grow and be more sustainable for the environment. That's a little twist on the fishing analogies. Hopefully that makes sense. But for me, it was more that I was requested, and for the startup lesson is look for what the market wants, the market you want to serve, and be the servant to that marketplace. It's a different perspective, but it's a much more effective in the long run in regards to results, because you get success faster.
That's right. And I just have to tell you right now, I'm having, as you folks know, I have a few of these with my guests because they say something so brilliant, I have to start fanning myself. Launching a business is really hard. Make sure you go where there's ample opportunity. Nobody wants to hear, this has never been done before. Yikes. And again, as Joselin said, you want to give what that group your target audience wants. That means you really got to hone in to find out what they want and what is it about your brand promise that's going to really resonate with them. Don't make it hard on yourself. Make it easy on yourself. That was just brilliant. So when did you go into understanding online marketing, digital marketing, social media marketing, all of that? What called you to put out a shingle and say, this is where I'm going? And especially the marketing end, because you've got that, your background is very engineering. I mean, you've got a real systems brain.
Right.
And so, you know, and this is where a really big misconception happens, Joselin, right? People think marketing, oh, they must be creatives. Look at most CMOs, chief marketing officers, have an undergrad degree either in stats or math. Okay, folks, it is a numbers game. So I can see how it's ideally suited for your beautiful brain, but share what called you.
Yeah, so marketing is math, as you mentioned, in metrics and all those analytics and things like that. People often neglect it, and it's more technical nowadays. So the CMO, CTO role is being merged because a lot of the tools that we use require some sort of technical competency. So that gave me an unfair advantage. As you mentioned, I studied at computer and electrical engineering. So one of the things that I did as a freshman, I interviewed someone that was in computer engineering, computer tech, software development. I looked at all these computer science, all these related fields. I interviewed seniors that I knew to determine, okay, in 4 years, this is my path. And then I also kept in contact with the research and what the research was saying in regards to job opportunities and things of that nature. So that's one thing that again, the mentorship, that's what you get it for. I didn't have a formal mentor, so I asked my friends to be informal mentors for that particular subject matter. So that's something to learn. So when I was going to Northeastern, I learned early on, I saw the technology evolve from Mosaic being the browser of choice to Netscape to now Mozilla. And I saw the switch. I also happened to be studying networking, which is the fundamental principles behind us being connected on the internet, right? So ARPANET was this network for academics that would exchange research, documents across what we would consider the web before the web came out. And Tim Berners-Lee kind of got that ball rolling. So it was all part of the progressive nature of what I was already studying with computer engineering and electrical engineering. It's an evolution. I just happened to be extremely blessed to select it so early on. I remember being at the Boys Club, learning how to program the TRS-80 Tandy from Radio Shack, and I stayed there so long that I almost got locked in because I was teaching myself how to use a computer on my own, and that evolved. And once things like being able to play games at the time and not knowing who you're playing games with, that networking part in my high school, Lawrence High School, which is probably considered maybe like the best from the educational standpoint, there was a network already built in. I met people in my high school by going on their chat. And it was amazing. It's like, oh, wow, who's this person in the high school that I'm chatting with, which is amazing. I also happened to work for Mr. Hanlon, who was not only the computer teacher, but he also managed all the computer technology in the school. And I worked for him in the evenings. So I used to actually input the grades into the computer. No one knew this, by the way, just a few select folks. I didn't have to change my grades, but I could change anybody's grades. The guidance counselors used to have to come to me to change the schedule. So I had this insider perspective early on.
That would make you very popular.
Yes, and it's so funny because I could go into the school at any point in time, and obviously you just can't roll in there, but people recognize me, the maintenance guy or the staff, saying, "What are you doing here?" They look at my face, "Oh, it's you." So, yeah, do whatever you want. So it's kind of interesting just to see that dynamic early on in high school. But to answer your question more directly, it was just an evolution. In the initial part, there was one thing that I learned about SEO. There was a multi-level marketing company that, for whatever reason, started using my name for promoting their MLM. So I'm like, you need to take my name down. And they were using the social proof as a way to market their MLM, right? So it's like, if Joselin does it and he's cool, then, or whatever, and you know him, then this is good for you. So I started to realize that connection early on. And they said, well, you do SEO. Why don't you remove it yourself from our, SEO and in search engine results. So I did. And now I control the first 300 references of my name on Google. And one of the things that I used was social media profiles. I created it with my name and made sure that I was semi-active on all of them. And that way it pushed down all the foolishness down, which I leverage for reputation management for my companies and for the brands that I work with. Because once you understand the science of the technology, literally, that gives you an unfair advantage when it comes down to marketing, which is the second piece. So we already talked about mindset. Now we're talking about marketing. So the M, and we're going to talk about the T for the long. So stay tuned.
Oh my!
Like that little promo?
I like that so much. I'm going to remind anybody who's watching right now, if you're live, please share something valuable you learned from our conversation that we're having. I mean, the gems are dropping left and right now from Joselin, especially that understanding. You see this with his beautiful brain, his ability to grab the engineering, the science, the technology behind everything and bring it into the marketing. He's got the mindset. We talked about the marketing, and that is where so many businesses fall down. It's, bringing something to market that people don't want or not being able to find them where they are. So can we talk a little bit about one of my favorite topics? Everybody knows this is something that's so important to every single business. And I love it when people stay on top of this because it's part of our reiteration and we keep trying. It's not like you're going to go out once and everybody's going to go, oh my God, and your product's going to sell right off the shelf. No, you have to understand your value proposition and you have to prove it. And that value proposition means you have provided something to folks who not only want it, because a lot of people say they want it, right? But will actually buy it. And if it's repeatable, they'll do it again and again, and they'll tell others about it. And that takes time. And sometimes the market comes back with some information and you find yourself going over here with a business model you never thought about, and boom, you're hugely successful. Talk a little bit about that, Joselin, since we're jumping into marketing.
Yeah, one of the things that I had the false assumption on, which many founders, small business owners have in mind, a certain demographic, at least, I would say the majority, is the value proposition. Value, what does it mean? I used to undervalue my offer, thinking that would be beneficial to the demographic, meaning that instead of charging my rate, I used to think, oh, I'm going to help them out. Let me give them a discount, or let me, work with them for free, or whatever the case may be. That unfortunately doesn't work, primarily because people do not value things that they don't invest in. They think, oh, I didn't pay anything for it, so why should I, help out? Oh, I didn't pay a lot for it, so why should I put a lot of energy? And by the way, do this, this, and this. So they not only not get a tremendous quote unquote deal, but they're not willing to put in the effort. And in addition, they're requesting all these unrealistic things and thinking that that you're in the wrong because you limit how much you help them at a discounted rate, which is the craziest thing. So mentally, that was very stressful. And good thing I had shaved by that time, but otherwise I probably would have lost my hair, because it is kind of stressful.
It is. And I know anybody watching right now, you know what Joselin's talking about, right? And give me a heads up, a fun thumbs up, a high five, a fist bump, because you've been there when you the demand, and you said that so well, Joselin, the demands they make, because now you've given it for free and I want this and I want that. No, you set the boundaries for your business, right? You set the pricing and always make sure that there's the energy exchange of money. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So there's a concept of being cheap, being inexpensive. So my current stance is that I'm not the cheapest, but I provide you with the best offer. And I'm not going to say that's expensive or not, because expensive is relative. If you invest 10,000, but you're going to make 100,000, is that expensive? No, it's expensive to someone that doesn't want to make 100,000 or isn't at that level, right? So it's all a matter of perspective. So that's something that's important to know. For every dollar that you invest, how much are you getting back? What's your ROI? This is still part of the marketing discussion in everything that you do. So whether it is investing in outsourcing certain elements of your business, or providing services to your client, is like, is what your client investing in you is that lower than what they're getting back? That's the ultimate goal of a business, not the other way around. Once you start giving in return, then your clients are going to become ambassadors, and they're going to recommend you to everyone that they know, because not only are they getting stuff back, but they're getting other surprises, right? They could be getting other things, like, for every package you buy, someone buys from you, you throw in something else, or you throw in like a quote, or you throw in something extra, because you're creating experiences, right? Why is this important? And I got some data. So, because I'm an engineer, some data. The odds of being born is 1 in 400 trillion, right? So the fact that you're here today means that you've won, right? So you're already a winner, right? So that's one thing. The second interesting fact is that the life expectancy of a person on Earth is currently 78.99. And Joselin, that is great. And previously, it was 78.93, 78.87 in 2018, 78.81 in 2007. So we're living a little bit longer, but it's still under 80 years. So we only have so much time to do what we're going to do, right? So why not give your best? Why not be more efficient? Why not be more focused? Because we don't have a lot of time to waste. Because this is sans any other accidental situation that might occur, right? Car accidents or whatever might happen that's in this world, right? So be focused. You don't have a lot of time to waste. So that is the essence of being able to provide the most value the quickest, and do that with some diligence.
Mm-hmm. Right. And folks, this is why I brought Joselin on the show. His understanding of consumer brands. Okay. This is so important for any of you to understand that we basically are all a consumer brand. I mean, sure, shoes and perfumes and different products will stand out more, watches, cars, etc. But still, people are consuming your service, your product, what you are delivering. And it's so important that you understand their behaviors and that you create an experience with them. That is the brand promise that you want to deliver, is that experience. And I think that's where a lot of people drop the ball. What do you think, Joselin?
Absolutely. There's always opportunities to give more. And give more doesn't have to be a monetary exchange. It could be simply giving more of your time to thank folks. This is something that going to, for example, Boston TweetUp, right? Mm-hmm. Boston TweetUp, we're going to go into that, but I'm just going to tell one story and we're going to elaborate a little bit later. So I realized early on that one of the hardest things to do is get attention for an event.
Yes.
Right. And I knew that an event organizer wants people to attend, but they can't just keep saying the same thing over and over. And they also can't keep promoting themselves. Right. So a lesson that I learned when I was about, 7 or 8 years old, is I have 4 older sisters, like I mentioned earlier. Everything kind of revolves around family with these stories. So I was an introvert. And in the family, in the culture that I grew up, you only spoke when you're spoken to. So there was all this dynamic stuff, and I was shy and introverted. I still am introverted. We're going to talk about why I'm so talkative now later on. But one of the things that I learned is that if I asked my mother if I could go out and hang out with my friends across the street, if my sisters were in earshot, they would completely come up with multiple, objections as to why I shouldn't be able to go. At least in my mind, that's what I thought. So, which was true, which is why I was thinking it. So what I used to do is say, okay, so let me get on the phone with my friends. And I said, okay, Sergio and Nelson, those are my 2 friends from across the street. I said, Sergio or Nelson, whoever I was talking to, was like, can you have your mother call my mother so that I can go over there and hang out with you guys? So sometimes I would give my my mom the phone right away. Or sometimes a more elaborate scenario was I would hang up and then she would call the house completely devoid of my presence. She would pick up the phone. My friend's mom would call and request that I be there. And I knew that was the ticket out, right? So then now what I do with Boston TweetUp is if Andy's having an event, I promoted her event without her knowing. And then I made it easy for her to just retweet it because I put all the details about her event, where to register and everything else. And all the people involved, from the speakers, the sponsors, the venue, everybody, the partners, all in the tweet. So all everybody had to do was retweet and get maximum network effect. I made it easier for people to consume the content that I have. And then after a while, people saw that I was promoting other events and they wanted the same type of promotion. So I created a way for people to leverage my services by giving out some services and experiences. And then I started, and one last thing, one of the things that I started to do is say, hey, let me do something different. All the people that tweeted these events that I've talked about during the week, let's see who's tweeted out like the most interesting things. And I used to do networker of the week. And I used to give, shout outs to people. Hey, these are the networks of the week for these events. These guys put out some great tweets about these events. And then one person say, oh, cool. What do I get? I'm like, oh, what do you get? And I created a digital diploma saying that you were the networker of the week. It was just an image. And it's like, oh my God, that made my year, blah, blah, blah. So that was something that I just made on the fly because they asked. I'm like, okay, what do you get? And I'm going to end with this last story. I learned that from Kodak. The reason why I learned that from Kodak is because Kodak was with his daughter walking in the forest and he was taking pictures. And he took a picture and his daughter said, why can't I have the picture now, Daddy? So instead of giving her an elaborate technical answer as to why she couldn't have that picture, he said, why can't you have it? And he created the Kodak Instagramic camera.
Yeah.
And that's the story. So
wow.
Yes,
and it's always the power of good questions, folks. Right, Joselin?
Absolutely.
The power of asking really good questions. And I had a big grin on my face this whole time, folks, because I've experienced the Boston TweetUp from when I first met Joselin in early 2012 at an event we had here in Boston, I think called Brand Camp U or something like that. And from there on, just looking at the calendar, because, when you're a solopreneur, or if you're on your own or you're building a business, you want to get around some other founders, bring your team with you. You want to know what's happening. And I could always go to Boston TweetUp and find out what was happening, what was on the schedule. Oh, I could do this. I can sign up for that. I can attend this event. So helpful. Combined with when you do post an event with Boston TweetUp, you give the details with the hashtags, with your @ for Twitter, because really Twitter is still the most engaged current right now, not only for individuals and companies, but journalists follow along. It's still a very relevant platform. And it just made my life so easy. And I love that you had the award. It may seem simple, folks, but honestly, people get so jazzed up over even a printout on a piece of paper acknowledging their existence. Right, Joselin?
Yes, I have actually another interesting brand story where I was working for a local hotel that had a bar, and the bar's logo was very similar to another university-based advertising logo, and it was great. So what turned out was a discussion on Twitter about like, oh my goodness, these two logos look very similar. They should date. I don't know how that came out, but what I ended up doing is I printed up the logos in big styrofoam, and then I put them with me and my friend, and we became the two logos, and we were on a date together, and we made it an event that people went to and participated in. So taking the shenanigans that happen online and making them a reality is always some great, because the people that created this idea have more incentive to be a part of it and share with it and just have a good time and things like that. So we're talking about events here. We're talking about online. We're talking about the synergy of being online and going offline and going back online, because people are going to share the pictures after that event and make that event and experience live on. Right?
Let me tell you, it's going to be the theme of this entire conversation. I know it's the theme of your work in the world. experience. Remember what Maya Angelou said. People aren't going to remember what you did for them. They're not going to remember what you gave them, but they're definitely going to remember how you made them feel. That's why the experience is so important. So let's talk about MMT. We talked about mindset. We talked about marketing of your MMT method. Let's go into technology and let's talk about how you serve clients.
Correct. So a lot of times, I get the intro question that is very tactical. I need a new website. I need, tactically to get more views on streaming. Most of the interest comes with the tactics or the technology, which is the last thing that you need to think about on a strategic timeline, right? So mindset is the foundation. If you don't have the proper mindset, it doesn't matter what you do. I've had people that were on the brink of success, but because their mind wasn't right, they gave up on themselves and then they blamed me for it. And then they ended up losing triple, right? They lost me, they lost the market, and they lost themselves. So it's unfortunate. That's the way it is. Marketing is essentially all the things that we talked about, the math, the branding, how you communicate, what your voice is, all those types of things. Those things need to be done before you get to the T part. And T from technology also represents your team, your tactics, your tools that you have. We need to figure out what you're working with in order to determine how best to create a formula to get you to where you want from a marketing perspective of what kind of money you want to generate. What are the metrics that are key to you?
Yeah.
What kind of things you want to accomplish? What market do you want to serve, right? So when I engage a client, we go through an intensive process, which is I send them a questionnaire. We have this discussion. And in this discussion that is based off of the questionnaire, I put together a draft plan for the next year so that they know exactly what they need to do, what apps to get, what tools to have, what tools to enhance, what things they need to upgrade, those types of things. And then from there, we go and we implement it, we being the team. So in that 1 hour or 2 hour, 3 hour discussion that we have, we record it. I send it to them with details, with the plan, the rough blueprint. I have like 2 weeks. I put together the full-fledged plan, which is 15 to 20 pages. In that, they go and they have a plan to execute. If they want to do it, they can. If they want us to do it, we're done for you service. We'll take care of everything. So that's the essence of the MMT, right? I created it based off of engineering principles. Engineering principles is like you have a black box. There's a black box. You have an input and you want an output. You want to have customers come in. What do you give them? That's the black box. That's what we're trying to figure out. And what's their experiences long term? Is it them coming back into the beginning, right? Or is them going to another box that's much bigger, right? So if you think of a martial artist, yes, they work toward the black belt, but then there are different degrees of black belt once you get there, right? So it all depends on your business model. Do you just want to focus on people that are going to college? So you have always these new freshmen coming in every year, right? Or do you want to focus on the experience of like going as a career from various phases and having a lot of offers at the different stages? You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's one of the things that's very important. This is one of the things that brings clients in to my world. And then I give them this formula, and this formula is guaranteed to work every single time. And it's really more about them executing it and really just staying focused with their mindset in order for it to happen at the end the way they want to.
Right. And I love how you build time in there because we're so used to having things happen like this, right? No, not with marketing. Right, Joselin?
Yeah, there's a lot of different things. There's certain things that I've learned that you could provide easy wins on, right? As you prepare a much bigger portfolio for stability and for creating evergreen content, a lot of times people are so eager to post on Instagram, blah, 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 but they haven't come up with their brand kit. They don't have their colors thing. They're just using generic images. And it's very unfortunate because, they're missing a big opportunity just for the eagerness of going out there. Great art, great marketing takes time, even the most simplistic, especially the most simplistic. When you're using two colors, that's much harder than color photos. Right?
Think of Instagram, everybody. Think of how they started off, right? They started off and, now we all know the Instagram icon. But when they first started off, it was that camera. They weren't sure. but they refined it. So it's okay that you can refine it, but they still had something that people were able to grab onto right away and feel the vibration of that business. I want to bring up a favorite local fan here. Hey, Eric, how are you? Yes, Eric is saying I was at an early TweetUp at McGreevy's, I believe, or at 2010. Where's McGreevy's?
McGreevy's, that is down by Fenway. Oh, actually,
Okay.
there's actually in Boston Street.
Okay. Oh, I know right where it is, across from the Pru?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Hi, Eric. Eric is the founder of Media Prepared. He always makes sure that you're prepared to have when that mic or opportunity to share your business is thrust upon you, could even be in an elevator, that you are ready to command your moment anytime. We love him, local guy. And also, he lives in Lawrence, by the way.
Oh, really?
Where hustling grew up. So. Yay.
So we might need to connect because I'll be going back to visit my mom pretty soon. So once I get my second vaccination, visit my mom who's in the nursing home. So yes,
it's going to feel great. And right now we are, speaking of vaccinations, we're starting to be able to meet in person again. And this is something you've talked a little bit about already, but you are brilliant at, whether it's virtual or in person, you are brilliant at helping brands create an incredible experience. So talk to us, because you have a 5-phase event planning and promotional process that, similar to what you were talking about with the MMT method, generates success for any event. Let's talk about how we can do this hybrid world that we're living in. I mean, I'm seeing wonderful events in our city. They're still virtual with some in person. What are your thoughts around this, and how can people generate a good buzz around that?
Yeah, I think it's understanding what you want to get out, the end in mind. So the 5-phase event planning and promotional service adds 3 different elements to the traditional event planning process. So there is pre-planning, and the goal of the pre-planning phase is to understand if you are even going to do the event. Sometimes people come up with events and they're like, oh yeah, let's do this. But then there's either a lot of competition, other people are doing it. You could just piggyback off what someone else is doing. So the pre-planning is just to understand that. So then there's the planning. The planning is once you've confirmed that this is the event that you want to do, then you start thinking, okay, well, is it a series? Is it a one-off? If it's a series, how often? Monthly, weekly? Those types of things. You look at that because it goes into the next phases. So the better you do the first 3 phases, the easier the last 2 phases become. So pre-planning, decide what you're going to do. Planning, you put all the things into place regarding what's necessary, who to partner up, the venue, all those types of things. Hashtag one event hashtag. You could do others, but it's one primary one. And then we're looking at, and the reason why you do that is because you want to have all your content be siloed into one place that you could easily, go to. If you have multiple hashtags, it becomes a little complicated. This is why we use the JMB day today to aggregate all the discussions that are happening today, which is great. So pre-planning, planning, pre-event. So pre-event is what you do before the event, right? So there's a merger, there's a little gray area between the planning and the pre-event. But the pre-event is making sure you have all the name badges, all the things that you set up at the venue. If you're doing virtual, having the green worm 5 minutes, 10 minutes before you go live, that type of thing. You still fundamentally need to do the same thing. So then you need to have your photographers, how you're going to document it, have what's your next event that you're going to promote, so that when you're at the live event, you actually promote the next event at the event that you're in. So if you have that foresight, you actually can start collecting money for the next event at the current event that you're having, and becomes this cycle, right? So then you have the photographers capturing a certain amount of content so that you could use for marketing. Moving forward, you can start collecting testimonials at the event if you properly prepare. So you have already testimonials for the next event because now you have someone that's deliberately there to capture this information. So there's a lot of things you could go into. Then you have the during event, and then after the event, you already have something that is already planned for the next event. This is when you analyze all your data to see if you're moving in the right direction, if you need to make any adjustments for the future event, so on and so forth. So pre-planning, planning, pre-event, during event, and post-event. Those are the 5 phases. You could even craft the newsletter that comes out after the event, before the event, if you plan it correctly.
Right.
So that way, within a couple of hours of the event happening, you could have the draft copy made. You just put those pictures that you took at the event, put them in the newsletter, send it out. It's all done, stress free. You don't have to worry about it, and then you just have to prep for the next event. So I went pretty fast there. So if you want, rewind this, go back to this, and this is just high level, right? This is very high
That's
level.
right.
So I'll give you a specific example if you don't mind. And
Please.
So going back to Boylston Street, I got brought and hired by Cadillac to do an event to attract young executives, young professionals to their new product line. So I created Social Beer at Lear. Number one, I created a hashtag in an event that's easy to remember: Social Beer at Lear. Alliteration is important when you're branding. You want to stand out from the rest. This was actually one of the events that was part of Future of Marketing event, put together by a local event organizing team here, MyTex. So they put this event together, Social Beer at Lear. So what I did is I wanted to create a lot of people creating content, and I didn't want to just tweet with the hashtag. It was kind of boring at that point. It's always been kind of boring. So what I did is like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to provide the person that shares the most creative piece of content using this hashtag. We're going to give them a free week with the car, right? So what I did to amplify this is I put a bunch of notes all across the bar with fun facts that people could literally just take a picture and just tweet that out to contribute. I also had a screen that would display all the tweets in real time so that people got that motivation to tweet because it saw all the people tweeting, social proof. So I saw that there. So one of the fun facts that was there was, what was the name of the Twitter bird? And because we're in Boston, it was a great fun fact because the Twitter bird name is Larry Bird, which is the Boston Celtics, which is kind of fun for Bostonians to have this Twitter social media fact in a city in Boston where they are at an event. So not only did I put them all in the bar, I put them in the bathroom, things like that. So at that time, we were the most discussed trending topic in the Boston area because I crafted it that way. It was engineered to work because it went through the psyche of people, and people didn't know that they were going to win by using 10,000 hashtags or tweeting a bunch of times. They knew in order to win, they needed to be creative. So I forced them in a much more elegant way to do something that we could use and would be beneficial to them. And then in the process, I was retweeting and things like that. So I wanted to give a concrete answer versus a generic kind of strategic perspective.
Thank you for that visual, because also they had fun.
Yes.
Because I'm in the bathroom and here's Larry Bird,
Yes.
It's so good. Let me bring up Mia Voss, speaking of brands and brand ambassadors. Oh my gosh. So Mia says, great info, because people are really out of practice for events. And a lot of people didn't know how to implement all of those good tips pre-pandemic. And those of you who watch the show know that Mia Voss is also the host of Shit We Don't Talk About podcast. Go follow her on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to podcasts. Phenomenal conversations, but she's also a brand ambassador. And let me tell you, she was driving a sweet machine this weekend in Colorado in the mountains. A beautiful, I'd say EV, BMW. Yes, Miss Mia? Oh, yes. Baby, that was sweet. And so follow Mia if you want to get great tips on how one can really rock it as a brand ambassador and get the word out. But I agree, Mia, that example that Joselin just shared with us really was amazing, and we need to get back into practice with it. Okay, it was the BMW 33OE, and it was white. Goddess Mobile, everybody. Yes. But, and someone else who does it really well in our town is the one and only Bobby Carlton. Yes. When she started 120, she has a show, an event every month. It was called Mass Innovation Nights. She just sort of randomly started it. I think it was like 2008-ish, after the meltdown in the economy, and it took off. But she always had a hashtag MIN and then the number. And Chris from Boston New Technology, same thing, BNT with the number. That was the hashtag. But, you're talking about something that's also very important. It's not enough to just trend on Twitter. It's to create this experience. And I think that's just going to be the theme from this entire show with you, Joselin, is create an experience. That is how you stand out, everybody, with your brand, is to help people feel really good about participating. So, Joselin, we have to wrap up because we're going to go play on Twitter Spaces.
We are.
With
But
you.
before I do, I also want to augment the story, because you're talking about pandemic, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. And one of the things you could do is, and one of the things we're going to see is hybrid events. So in order to augment the story that I gave you with Cadillac, is include people that are home tweeting from home, and they can also participate, so you don't have to leave them out. So this is an opportunity for startup founders to come up with an event, or come up with some technology that makes it easier for event organizers to include their attendees from home or wherever they are, so they could also participate. Just throwing that out there.
Beautiful. And thank you, Mia. I've been singing all day. Happy birthday, Joselin. Oh, thank you for that. Let's talk two more pieces of information before we hop on over to Twitter Spaces. And folks, it's the same at Joselin Mane. That's where we're going to be. We're going to continue this on the audio platform on Twitter, using Joselin's name right there. You'll find everything, Joselin Mane. But let's talk about the founder journey. You've been at this for a while now. What do you do? We talked about mindset a little earlier, but what specific tip can you give folks when they are feeling really inadequate, or they're too busy despairing and comparing, right? And they've forgotten why they're uniquely qualified to be the founder. Share with us a great piece of advice.
Yeah, I think one of the things, because I suffered through imposter syndrome as well, and it's weird because sometimes you do stuff so naturally, you think, why is this valuable? Why do you feel? And again, it goes back to the 1 in 400 trillion. Everybody has some unique perspective about life. Everyone does. I would suggest having conversations with your closest friends, family members, teachers, guidance counselors, to let you know what they think your special gift is, that you might take for granted. And I think that's what ends up happening, is that we take for granted our gifts and double down on those gifts. Not everybody is perfect. Sometimes people that look like they're perfect shy away from highlighting things that they're not good at, so that you only see them at their best because they're only focusing on what they can provide. So Gary Vee is also one of those people that you follow. He's doing everything. It started off with him just having this passion. You also have to understand he's sacrificing a lot. So you're seeing one element of his life. You don't see the other element of his life. He's sacrificing so that you could see one element of his life, the stuff that he's good at, right? And then he says so much that in the future, one of those things are going to come true, right? So he's just going to go back and say, hey, see when I told you that? But he says a lot of different things. So again, look at what you're doing. Journal is a very important thing. I journal every day. As a matter of fact, I put out my journals out online, and you could actually follow the hashtag JMMiracleMorning on Twitter and see all my daily, and I'm going to give you the exact date of my how many days I've been doing it in a row, because consistency is vital. I've been doing it for 2,339 consecutive days. So that's about, I guess, 6 years or so. But every day on Twitter, you're going to see that. So consistency is essential. So hard work beats talent when all talent does is do what they do. So someone that works hard is always going to outdo someone with talent.
Yes.
Now, if you have talent and you're working hard, you have an unfair advantage over anyone. So we see Michael Jordan, one of the best that's ever played, the best that's ever played, and he was surely talented. But there's so many thousands of people that were more talented than Michael Jordan. But what brought Michael Jordan to the next level is he worked hard, and it was always working the hardest in addition to his talent. That gave him an unfair advantage. So figure that out. And you might see that sports, but you could do it as in accountants. You could do that in any of the other trades, a musician, a startup founder. Just there's work involved. This is why you start off with the passion and that mindset, because all of it is work. But if you focus on something that is, uniquely qualified for you, or uniquely, suited for you, you're always going to win, right? You're going to have ups and downs, but that's part of the process.
And then finally, how has entrepreneurship served you both professionally and personally?
I think going back to what I just said, it helped really establish my identity, because I started off, as I mentioned, introverted kid, not really knowing, having to ask my friend's mom to like take me out and have fun. Now I go in to any room, find where I could fit in and contribute and be vocal about it. And as an entrepreneur, being able to have a conversation with the vice president of communication at Toyota and giving them good advice about what they need to do, that led to me teaching the whole North American communications team of Toyota how to best leverage social media just by having a conversation. So that is phenomenal. Consider I'm a person of color, first generation. You know, they could have selected any marketing agency in the world, but they selected me, one individual, to do this for them. So that enabled me to have the confidence necessary to help others to do the same thing, especially when it comes down to representation. Women, people of color, you know, disenfranchised people, people with disabilities and things like that nature. Figuring out a way that we could all contribute in our own special way is important to me, and I want to live that life and be that example. So yes, quite the transformation.
I love that. Yeah, but also I just want to say right here, right now, we've heard all the other pieces of advice, but have a conversation. That is so important to stitch on your pillow, founders, because so often we do not have those conversations. We might think about them, but my good friend Anna Pereira just landed an incredible forward on her book, a great testimonial on her book from someone that she had a conversation. She was afraid to have that conversation with them, but she nailed it. Same with you. You got that deal with Toyota. So founders, I want you to take that away with you and say, have that conversation. I'm going to take that with me. I have to practice that for sure. One final question before we celebrate you one more time on your birthday. Tell us about the glasses.
Yes, so these are Snapchat glasses called spectacles. Here they go. And I happen to know one of the investors in Snapchat. They gave me the first gen. This is second gen. And what we're doing now is every time you see me press, you see this light, I'm actually recording. It stores it on the camera, on the in my glasses. And then later on, I upload it to Snapchat. And then you get to see my point of view, POV, of what's happening here. I just wanted to show how easy it is to create content. Just clicking a button, and I did this, and I interviewed, I think, you and others at events. That way I could have this intimate conversation with event hosts and speakers and sponsors and everybody else, give them some shine, and record them very easily. So that's, you know.
I love that. How do people get these glasses?
So they go to spectacles.com. So okay. Look at this. It's spelled spectacles.com.
They are very cool.
Yes.
And when you do like this, how long does it last?
It lasts 10 seconds, which is the time frame of a story on Instagram, cool. Twitter, Snapchat. So you
that's
can
really putting it out
everywhere.
Well, thank you. And, Mia too, I agree. What are your gifts? And sometimes we can't see them. So we do need to have them reflected back at us. Or of course, when anybody leaves a positive comment of any type, I highly recommend you do a quick screenshot and put it on your Pinterest testimonial board, whether you want to be brave and put it out there like Joselin does with his journal. What? I couldn't put mine out, but or you can keep it private, whatever works for you. I highly recommend that. Let's just do one more time, because I am just loving to celebrate you every day of the year, but especially today because it is your birthday. Happy birthday, Joselin.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me on the show. I will join you on Twitter Spaces now. We're going over there to Twitter and continuing this conversation about creating experiences no matter what, and using Joselin's special MMT method to do that. And I'm just excited to go even deeper and learn more about this topic. I'm going to wrap up the show right now. I will see you over there in a heartbeat, my friend. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Really appreciate you. Oh my gosh, we learned so much there. And it's never too late. Put this in there. And Joselin, you want to come back in and talk about the other thing? We forgot to add that in here. But we forgot to share this as well.
Yes,
Don't worry.
indeed.
I'll have it in the show notes. But those listening on the
Perfect.
podcast, it is, if you, I don't think that'll happen for the podcast, but if you are watching this video right now, use the hashtag JMB, all caps, DAY, lowercase, on the platform of your choice. Respond by June 9th at 12 p.m. ET. You're going to get a 30-minute strategy session. Respond after June 9th at 12 p.m. ET. You're going to get a 15-minute strategy session with this man. Now, you know how quickly he works. You know you're going to get a jam-packed moment. Almost forgot to share that great thing. Oh, hosting. So thank you so much for your generosity, Joselin. I really appreciate it. Now I'll say goodbye to you and wrap up the show, for crying out loud. Anyway, we all learned a lot from Joselin. It's so much fun to have a local, beloved member of our startup community here. Again, if you've heard anything that really resonated for you, share it. And certainly share this link with folks you think will benefit from our conversation today. So here's who's coming up this Friday for a Fab Female Friday, Founder Friday moment. And it's June 11th at 12 p.m. EST. And it's all about gaming for good with Miriam Nusrat. She's the founder of Grid, Gaming Revolution for International Development. And it's a tech startup that aims to unleash the power of video games to educate, engage, and empower people for positive behavior change. And Grid is powered by a global team of young professionals who share a passion for video games and social change. And they have created games on reproductive health, climate change, health pandemics, animal welfare, STEM. Oh my gosh. We are going to learn so much from our conversation with Miriam. And how do you find out whenever I post a new event? Why, I'm going to bring it up any second here on the screen. I'm really stalling for some reason and cannot find my meetup slide. So, oh well, you're going to join the meetup group. Here it is. Producing and directing at the same time. Join the meetup group. That's where I post all the new shows. You'll get an alert. You can RSVP. You can pop it into your calendar. And that way you'll know when we're going live. Yay. And hey, thanks, Mia, for that. You always have the best guests, Andy. I am so lucky to, be able to hear these wonderful stories. So thank you, Mia. It's such an honor. Everybody, until next time, remember that you are braver than you think, smarter than you seem, and stronger than you are. Sometimes wondering about yourself. So I will see you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Wishing you a delicious day. Mwah! Until next time.